You decided that you want to move abroad, be that as a digital nomad, as an expat, just to travel the world for a while, doesn't really matter. And in preparation, you start to look at content that relates to travel and living abroad. Of course, everyone does that in the times of not social media, right? And you see all these beautiful pictures and everybody's happy, lying by the beach, working at the beach and whatsoever. Unfortunately, of course, as with anything related to social media, that is only half of the truth. There's a lot of hard things that happen that people don't talk about because nobody wants to show themselves on social media when they're down. And this is what I want to talk about in this video. While editing it, I actually realized that it was a very long video, which is why we will be cutting this into 2 parts. Check out the next part coming up on Sunday, and let's jump right into it. So number 1 is that moving abroad does not feel like a vacation. I mean, that is kind of obvious, so I guess that was kind of naive of me. But for me, at least, when I was deciding on where to move and I saw the beautiful pictures and I got this vacation feeling, think I would be living where other people go on vacation. Think about, my mind couldn't fathom how moving to a place as such makes it more of a day-to-day reality than what would be happening on a vacation. In the first few weeks that you arrive there, it actually feels like a vacation. You are in vacation mode. You explore, you try to figure out how things work, and it has this vacation kind of excitement that carries you through the first few weeks before you kind of hit your first drop, your first low, the expat blues, I guess it's called, and realize that, okay, even though this might be a beautiful place, even you might be living by the beach or in the mountains that you wanted to live in, and you could technically go swimming and snowboarding every day, there's a lot of things in day-to-day life abroad that are actually hard. So my tip here is to take the time to really settle and root first, particularly if you're planning to stay for a little bit longer than maybe a month or 2, so that you can build a solid ground, a solid set of routines and habits for when the vacation novelty wears up. Also be aware that these low points are absolutely normal. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with your decision that you've made to move abroad. It is just that, as our brain adjusts to the new reality, you will realize that, you have problems or there are difficulties everywhere. No matter where you live, there's things that don't work the way you do. Maybe you feel lonely. So just take a time to acclimate first and settle first before you start jetting off to different locations. Number 2, this was a hard one for me. You will most likely lose some friends. So the thing is, you're moving abroad, you're making all these new experiences, your perception of the world and of yourself is changing while life goes on as usual at home. I personally made the mistake that I did not stay in contact the way that I should with a lot of people, and then there was other people that it just naturally dissolved our friendships because we didn't have anything to talk about. They couldn't relate to my life and I couldn't relate to their life. And I mean, yes, of course, that was painful, and I am sad for some of these friendships. But on the other hand, I gained a lot of really great new friends as well that I made in different countries and where I gained new experiences. My tip, however, when you move abroad, in order to maintain contact, particularly with those people that you really wish to keep in your life, is to make a schedule for yourself. Before you move abroad, find a way to set up a way how you can stay in contact. That could be through writing a blog and to maybe have an Instagram account so that they can be part of your daily adventures, but also schedule or set up a rhythm at which you will check in with them. I mean, these days you could have a monthly video call or find a way how you can get together and keep in touch with the people that are dear and close to you, so you don't end up losing all your contacts and your friends while you are off traveling the world. Number 3, getting sick abroad sucks. I mean, well, I guess, but I always feel like if you're sick and you're not doing well, you're already at a very vulnerable state. And if you're getting sick abroad and you don't feel well, you don't have a support system, you don't have somebody that might help you with certain things. If you have a really bad cold or flu or whatever, that can step by and help you out. Maybe you don't know where to get the appropriate help. Maybe you don't know about the healthcare system. Maybe you're scared that you think the healthcare system is not as good as it is where you come from. So be prepared. You're probably gonna get sick or hurt yourself or whatever. And for me personally, at least, I always found it double difficult when I wasn't somewhere where I felt at home already. But in most cases, I mean, it'll pass and you will get through it. On that note, get appropriate health insurance. Make sure you get appropriate health insurance, but just be prepared that you might feel extra miserable during these times. Number 4, culture shock. I touched on this already when I said that the vacation novelty will wear off in number 1. Culture shock is actually a real thing, and I will in the future devote a whole video to that, explaining what's going on with us there. But culture shock is real. You come from a society and a culture that does things in one way, and if you move to a new country where there's new unwritten rules, there's new ways of doing things, people have different ways of behaving, different expectations of how you should behave. This is a rather uncomfortable feeling for your psyche, for your brain, and therefore novelty of it can feel shocking. As simple as that. So culture shock actually is a real concept in the social sciences, and is something that you should be prepared for and aware for. Oftentimes it kind of shows through feeling down. Some people can even go to almost a state of mild depression. Be aware that this can happen. It usually hits around 6 months into your stay. If you feel that you need to talk to somebody, you need help, please do so. But otherwise, there's nothing wrong with you for feeling this way. As the more you assimilate into a culture or integrate into a culture, the more understanding for your host culture that you foster, the better you will be able to deal with this, and the easier you will be able to understand and get out of culture shock. And I'm not saying that you should lose your own culture and therefore assimilate or take in the other culture. Think of it like a toolbox to understand which behavior is required or expected of you in a certain situation, and having the ability to pick the right tool for the right task. And then when you're done with the situation, you can basically just put it back in the toolbox. This does not mean that you have to lose your own culture. It just means that you have to know what your host culture expects from you in any given situation. If you're moving somewhere where you're planning to stay for a longer time, as in a couple of months or longer, I strongly recommend that you learn the language, at least, so you can be conversational. It'll help you a lot more with the point of culture shock, because only when you understand and hear what the other people are saying, the natives are saying, can you observe their way of interaction and therefore understand what it is that they do, how their culture functions. But it gives you a feeling of at homeness. It shows a certain, amount of respect to your host country. I actually personally have only once lived in a country for a longer time where I haven't spoken the language, which was Finnish or Finland. Now, in my defense, Finnish is a very special language. I think it's the third hardest language to learn, but that was a good excuse for me as well. So let's be honest, I did not really put the effort in because it was so different, and I probably have to admit that I just was too lazy to try and figure it out. And Finland is maybe related to that also the country where I always have felt the least at home, the least integrated, and the most unhappy. So this was the first part of things that I feel we are unprepared for when we move abroad. Check out part 2 coming up on Sunday.